Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network. Hi, this is Amit Doshi, and I wanted to thank each and every one of our listeners. It's been 2 years since I founded IVM, and it's been an amazing 2 years. We wanted to learn a little bit more about who is listening to our shows, and so we put together a short survey. The survey is anonymous, and we aren't going to be collecting any personal information. I would really appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes out of your day and go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and fill it out. Thanks, and please keep listening.
Hi, I'm Amit Verma, the host of the weekly podcast, The Seen and the Unseen. In my show, I examine the seen effects and the unintended consequences of public policy and private action. I show how policies meant to help the poor often end up hurting the poor. I've done episodes so far on demonetization, GST, surgical strikes, immigration and MRP. And I will continue my forensic assault on the truth in the weeks to come. Catch the show every Monday on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app, and go to seenunseen.in for all the latest updates.
You're listening to the On Course Podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to the On Course Podcast. On Course is a creative and alternate education company that aims to bridge the gap between formal classroom education and real-world skills. We offer a range of programs from short skill-based courses to test prep to application assistance for those who are looking to study abroad. My name is Alisha Mashruwala and I'm the CEO and co-founder of OnCourse.
Hi guys, my name is Akhil Daswani. I'm the COO and co-founder of OnCourse.
And today, during the podcast, we're going to be talking a lot about MBA applications abroad and, what some of the top colleges look at when you're applying for an MBA program. So just to kind of get started, what exactly is the MBA?
That's a really pertinent question, actually. It's one of the most misunderstood acronyms, out there. So the MBA, which stands for the Masters in Business Administration, is really a holistic business degree, right? So it covers every aspect of business. So unlike a lot of specific masters where you specialize in one field of business, where you specialize in, say, finance or marketing or entrepreneurship, an MBA is a more generalist degree. Like you study a little bit of everything. Of course, you can specialize within that. But the whole concept is you got to study every aspect of business.
And how long are the programs typically?
That actually depends from country to country and, from course to course. But typically they range from about 1 year to 2 years in certain countries.
Okay, so I guess the UK education is more 12 to 15 months and the US is probably closer to 2 years?
Yes, India is 1 year. We have Hong Kong and Singapore, which can be 1.5 years. UK is a year exactly to maybe year and a half. In Seattle and France, France is typically a year and a half. Europe in general would be about a year and a half. North America, which is Canada and the US, would typically be about 2 years, although even they've started offering 1 year programs now.
And what are some of the advantages of doing a 2-year program versus a 1-year program, for example?
Well, it depends, right? So if a school offers, so let's say, for example, Columbia offers two options. You can do the 2-year program or you can do the 1.5 year long program, right? But in these kind of places where they have these two options, they're still going to cover the same curriculum. What you do give up, though, you give up your extra summer, which you typically would use for an internship, and you typically give up all the extra networking and recruiting events that you normally would have gone to in the 2-year event. So if I'm looking for a job, the 1.5 year program is probably not an ideal situation for me. But if I'm just looking, let's say I have a business to already come back to and I just want to, go get the experience, get the education and come out, then the year and a half long program is actually is fine for me.
And what are the requirements, I guess, when someone's looking to apply for an MBA? What are the just key components in an application?
Yeah, so unlike the undergrad, where each country is sort of different, in an MBA program, most countries require the same approach or the same sort of stuff, So number one, they all require a GMAT score. Number two, they all require college grades. So that's the academic component. The third thing, which is really relevant now, is they all require a really good story. Now, I'll tell you what I mean by that. What they want to understand is, what have you done with your experience? It's not enough to say, listen, I have 2 years of experience or 3 years of experience or 5 years of experience. What's really relevant is what kind of experience you have. You could be, working at Infosys doing back operations for 5 years and you'd have a very weak story compared to someone who's worked just 2 years at a no-name startup, just taking on more responsibility, actually achieving things, So it's not so much the brand name of the company you work at, it's really the kind of work that you've done over the last 2 or 3 years.
And is there a minimum amount of years that you have to be working for before, or the ideal, I would say, before you apply?
That's a really good question, because a lot of countries like the US and Canada, etc., they don't really have a minimum. But from our experience, the best candidates tend to be those who've at least got experience for 3 to 4 years, if not more. There's a reason for that. You can't build a good story in a year and a half. You wouldn't have achieved enough in your career. You wouldn't know where you're going. And a lot of the story is kind of built around your future goals, right? How does a 23-year-old know what they want to achieve in life? Whereas a 28-year-old who's been out there, sort of worked for 4 or 5 years, knows what he wants to do next, knows why he needs the MBA, knows how business school can help him, right? And that's a big thing that business schools want to assess out is, are we relevant for the person as much as they are relevant for us?
And I guess when someone who's older who joins a classroom and an MBA program probably has a lot more to contribute just given the exposure.
Oh yeah, if you look at the average age at some of the best schools like Harvard or Columbia or Stanford, I think the average age is about 29, 30. And that's misleading, actually. That's the average age, right? So think there are people there who are 35, 36. And those guys bring a wealth of experience. And it's not just experience in terms of age. It's the kind of experience they bring, right? You have entrepreneurs in there. You have, people in the social space in there. You have bankers in there. You have consultants in there. You have people, who've been in the Olympics in there. It's a really diverse group of people with different kinds of achievements. But the only thing that kind of strings them all together is they've all excelled at whatever they've done.
And so kind of breaking down the components a little bit. So you talked about the GMAT. So what exactly does a GMAT entail and how long do you think one should study for it?
So the GMAT is a test on a score of 800. It's an online test which you have to go to a center to actually give it. The one thing really unique about the GMAT is it's scored out of 800, but it's an adaptive test. Now what that means is, as you give the test, the more questions you get right, the harder the test gets. So the test actually adapts to your ability, which makes it really unique, Typically it tests your math, your logic, your English. It also has a component called integrated reasoning, and it also tests your analytical writing. Those are extra and not really counted as part of the score on 800, but the main focus is math and English, really. And
how long do you think someone should prepare for the test?
That's a good question. I know people who've just, woken up one day, gone and given it and crushed the test, right? But there are people who really have to prep. Typically, what I find is if you're an engineer in India, which tends to be a very heavy audience, you will need to prepare a lot more on the English side than the math side. Math will be very, very easy for you. But if you're someone who's stronger in English, you will typically need to focus more on math. So I think it depends on what skills the person has. I think average would be about 4 to 5 months.
Okay.
And one more thing unique about the GMAT release is valid for 5 years, right? So even if you feel like you're fresh out of college and you just want to give the test, go and give it. It's valid for 5 years. You probably will use it within the next 5 years.
Great. And in terms of sort of the second component that we're talking about, the college grades and academics, is it an issue for anyone who's applying with a 3-year degree in India versus a 4-year degree somewhere else when they're looking at the US or Canada?
So obviously for Europe, it's fine because they accept the 15-year degree. For Singapore, Hong Kong, it's all okay. In America, most of the top colleges, ironically, are fine with the 3-year degree. There are some schools which are a little sticky about it. Canada is even more sticky than the US. So what we typically recommend is if you're, aiming for this and you've just graduated, do an MCOM by correspondence. Just get that 16th and 17th year of education. And do it while you're working. So it also counts as experience, side by side. That just sort of hits two birds with the same stone. And the other thing is you don't ever want to cut out schools just because of such a silly thing, right?
Right. And the third component that we were discussing earlier, which was your profile. So how exactly do you showcase this to the college and what exactly does an application entail?
Yeah, so, a profile really comes out through 3 ways in an application, right? It comes out through your essays, comes out through your interviews, which, once you pass the whole application stage, you move to the interviews. And then finally comes out through your recommendation letters, right? Now, the essays are usually different from each college, but one thing that's consistent about the essays at every school is they want to understand what have you done, what do you plan to achieve in the short run, in the long run, and how do we help you get there? That's the most important question that business schools want answered, right? The second thing they want answered is, what else have you achieved in life? And it's not enough to say, listen, okay, I'm a Deloitte and I've got the Gold Star Award. No, that's not what they're looking for. They're saying, okay, what quantifiable achievements do you have? Okay, I was working on this project, and on that project, I was the one who came up with a solution that helped save this company X amount of dollars. It has to be quantifiable, right? It's not enough to be qualitative. Remember, you're applying to business school. So the essays also have some creative components, like, okay, they want to see other aspects of your profile also, not just about your work, right? They want to see more things about you. They want to know, okay, has this been someone who's done good community service? Has this been someone who's done, something related to their passion? You don't have to worry so much about it being, just necessarily community driven. Anything that you feel passionate about is good, right? I'll give you an example. There was this guy we worked with who was, from Ernst & Young. And he was, he was on the tech team, and that was his main focus, right? Was data analytics and those kind of things. But he had a really strong passion for football. So he actually worked with Real Madrid to bring down their coaching camp to actually coach underprivileged kids. And that was just his personal achievement. So you want to have your professional achievements, you want to have all the strength on your goals, but you definitely want to have some kind of personal achievement. And it can be anything.
And who do you typically get recommendation letters from?
So yeah, recommendations typically would come. So it depends on what kind of work you do, right? Anyone working in a professional capacity would need to get one from their direct supervisor, and one more recommendation, which could be a client recommendation, or it could be their super boss, depending on what type of organization they're in. Anyone who's working in their own business, like or family businesses, that gets a little tricky because you can't take one from your own organization, because unless you have a separate board of advisors, I guess that works. But mostly then you're looking at clients, suppliers, third parties who you deal with on a day-to-day basis.
So kind of talking about family businesses, I feel like there's a lot of myths going around and notions saying that if you're working in your family business, it doesn't typically count as full-time work experience, or MBA programs don't typically appreciate it as much. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a huge myth, actually. MBA schools actually love them. The reason they love them is they don't have to place them, right? So at the end of it, these are guys who are coming in for the experience, for the exposure, and they don't need jobs. And the main concern that business schools have is, can we place all our students? So a family business person for a business school is like gold, right? But that being said, of course, you still have to have a good profile. You still have to have achieved something in the business. I'll tell you, the biggest con that happens for a family business person is that they're not able to structure their day well. So everything in their story is about, okay, we achieved this or we achieved that, but what did you do? And can you separate the I from the we? And I think that's sort of the main difference, And I think if you ask me, someone working in a family business, if they have a good structured environment, the achievements are a lot bigger. So while if I'm working in a professional capacity, my achievement is, okay, I helped my team achieve X. In a family business, it could be, okay, I started a whole new geography for the business, which expanded our revenue from, X to Y. So it can be a lot bigger. The scale is a lot more. So the stories sell a lot more, for sure. There's a reason why, 80% of people who go to Harvard Business School tend to be from family businesses.
And I guess there are a lot of people who do have very high GMAT scores, 740, 750 plus, good school grades, but often don't get into the top colleges. Is that primarily because of their profile in terms of their story? Yeah,
I think it could be a combination of things. I don't want to, it really depends from person to person, but profile is a big one, right? Have you adequately explained your goals? Have you been able to pinpoint what it is that you want to do next, right? And I think more importantly, is your goal so ambiguous that the college feels that they can't place you? And that's a huge thing. That could be one point. The other thing is, did you interview badly? There's a lot of really, really smart people in this country who just cannot speak well. And trust me, when business schools interview, that's the first thing they want to check is, how do you hold up in a face-to-face conversation, right? Because the last thing that they want is to bring in someone who's gonna, is awkward, is not someone who's going to add much, value to the classroom. And I think that's something which a lot of people do need to work on.
So what do they typically ask in an MBA interview? So
MBA interviews can either be conducted, depending on the school, by alums, who may be specifically sought out because you're in their industry, or it could be from AdComs or people from the admissions committee. Alums are fairly hard interviewers simply because they tend to be the strongest gatekeepers to their own schools. And with them, especially since they're in industry, you really can't, bullshit them at all. They will catch out every little white lie that you try to play. I think that the alum interviews, they typically will try to gauge out your story. They'll try to figure out what it is that you're trying to do, why their school, how their school really matches with what you're trying to do. I think they're just trying to feel the fit. AdComs do the same thing, except that AdComs tend to be more specific on why their school. Right, alums will go more into detail on the story, on your industry, all those things. AdComs will be just more surface scratching.
Okay, and who do you think should do an MBA?
I think anyone who feels like they need an MBA to get ahead in their career should probably do it. See, it's a heavy investment, right? At the end of it, you're probably going to be spending. It's about 1 crore if you're going to go to the US or Canada. It's about 50, 60 lakhs if you're going to stay in Asia. Either way, if you're going to take a loan, you're going to be in debt to do this and you're going to need a job coming out. You need to make sure you're making a decision that's prudent, right? So if you're doing really well in your career and you don't feel like you need this to go ahead, and I keep saying this, or if you feel like, okay, you don't need to be making a switch at this stage. You don't need an MBA. But if you feel like, okay, what you want to achieve cannot be achieved, like for example, if I'm in investment banking and I want to move to private equity, I can't do that without an MBA in certain countries. So in those cases, yes, maybe it makes sense, right? But in cases of, people who are just doing it because, hey, all my friends are doing it or, my family's pushing me to do it, really think about it. It's an investment in time. It's a huge opportunity cost also, right? That's 2 years worth of, productive years of your life you're giving up. But that being said, it's a great experience for someone who needs it. I think it's most people who've done it vouch by how life-changing it really is. So as long as it matches with, it sort of provides the right platform for you, I think it's a great fit.
And what are in your experience at least, what are some of the reasons you've seen for people wanting to do an MBA?
Again, varies, but I think the primary reason is I want a better job, right? And as much as colleges hate to hear that, that's the truth, right? People want a shift from their job. People want a shift from their country. People want, a better role. And there's certain industries where this happens, right? So finance is still very nascent in India versus other countries. Technology, we're still a little behind versus other countries. Consulting, like our business consulting, management consulting is not even ground zero at this stage if you compare it to where the West was, at this point. So in these sort of places, the job is the first thing. Of course, people in their own businesses go there for the exposure, their networks, more than anything else. I think you get a lot of soft things out of an MBA, which is amazing. But the prime reason people want to go is to get a better job.
And what are some of the top MBA programs across the world?
Well, that depends again, in terms of what you're going for. So if you want to go for finance, there may be no better place than LBS or Wharton, right? If you want to go for management, there may be no better place than Harvard. If you want to go for marketing, Kellogg is the place to go, right? So it totally depends on what you want to do. Social entrepreneurship, Stanford, right? INSEAD's a really good school across the board. There's so many good schools out there, in fact. I think rankings is one thing which people, swear by. And I think I would just tell them that, the top 10, 15 schools, every one of those schools is good. Don't get caught up in rankings. Focus more on the smaller things. Like, okay, do I want to be close to a city? Do I want to be away from a city? Do I want to be in a smaller class or a bigger class? Where does my profile really fit? I think be realistic. A lot of people come in saying Harvard, Wharton, Stanford. They don't have the profile for it. And they need to realize, okay, is it really a match? And if so, what schools really match it? And I'll be honest with you. If you're going to go to a top 30 school, you'll still be okay. Of course, if you start falling below top 30, top 40, top 50, top 60, then you need to start evaluating, do I need to do something different? Or should I be retaking the GMAT? Or is it worth it for me?
And do you feel like there are any programs similar to, say, a US or European style of education in India now?
Yeah, so IIMs have always been like the mecca of, the MBA in India. So, IIM, ABC are phenomenal programs, but they all, states prescribed curriculum. So it doesn't really change much from year to year. So they're a little archaic, but they place well. And of course, it's all over the papers, right? The only school which has sort of been able to keep out of the purview of the state prescribed curriculum has been ISB because of the international tie-ups and stuff. So they've become very, very popular. of course, I think ISPs are doing a great job in terms of the way they deliver their content, in terms of the stuff they're teaching. The only place where they kind of fall short, of course, is it's not a very diverse class. It's primarily an Indian class. So if anyone looking for a good Indian network, it's great. I think ISP is a very solid option for someone who's looking to stay in India.
Great. Thank you so much. I think this has been extremely insightful. For anyone who wants to know more or get in touch with us, you can email us on info@oncourseglobal.com. You could even visit our website on www.oncourseglobal.com or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Thank you so much.
Hey man, just help me out, man. I need some podcasts, man. I haven't had a fix in a week. Just need some.
Don't you worry about it. I got podcast galore for you, man. Just go to ivmpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna check it out.